Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror, the podcast. I'm your host, Kevin L. Powers, most of the owner operator of Something Wicked Entertainment and Events, and I want to welcome you to my podcast in which I discuss an individual horror film. Doesn't matter what decade, doesn't matter what subgenre, but me and my special guest will sit down, have a conversation about this film, which means we're going to have to deconstruct it, reconstruct it, and unconstruct it in order to give you a better idea of what it is this film is about. And today's film, or this episode in particular, since this is part of our themed franchise month in which we kind of delve deep into all the individual films within a franchise, this one we are doing with Phantasm 5 Ravager from 2026.
2016.
2016. Oh my God. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Dave. We are in 2026, so this would make it, I guess.
It just came out.
This would make it its 10th anniversary, which I did not think about until just now. So it's on its anniversary. But we have the esteemed Dave Watkins joining us, and we have Thomas Tinnerell. I want to thank you. And go ahead, guys.
I hope I'm also esteemed, but okay, I'll take whatever I can get.
Well, he's just giving me props because change. I told him the right date.
Yeah, you're on top of things tonight, Dave.
Yeah. You were thinking it though. You're just like, wait a minute, did it just come out?
It did just come out. We're hot from the theater.
Yeah. It depends on what timeline I guess we're in, but we're in the timeline right now where this movie came out in 2016.
Yes, and Jody did die in a car wreck.
Yeah. I think he did he?
Yeah.
So as you all can listen, we have been talking about all the Phantasm films, and you can go listen to the episodes for each individual film today. They are all being released today. So our brains have been phantasmed out, but
they've been eaten by a spear that came through the air and drilled into our brains.
So this is going to be an interesting one because everyone who's coming in will have a different experience on how they came about this film and when they saw it and what their interpretations of it are. So I guess today, who did we start off with last time? Was it Dave or was it you, Thomas?
I can't remember.
Well, we're going to start off with you, Thomas. Kind of give us your impression when you first saw the film and kind of what you thought about it.
Well, Kevin L. Powers, I thank you for letting me go first. So I first saw this movie, I'm positive that I think I'd heard of its existence briefly on the interwebs. And then I didn't actually watch it until I bought the Blu-ray box. Well, it's not really a box set, but it is a Blu-ray set at Walmart for about $14.99. And
no, I think it's out of print now too. You can't get
really?
It. I think I'll verify it.
It's the one. Yeah, it's the red cover with Angus Scrimm on the front, and it's like a painting. And it's like a Phantasm 5 film collection.
Oh,
but but it was like for $14.99 at Walmart, and I bought it I think back in 2018. I want to say.
Yeah, it's not currently available. And it's like the only one that's a U.S. version. That's the best U.S. version. There's a slightly better packaging on the UK Phantasm Arrow, but
they do it. Oh yeah, Arrow does everything better. Yes, of course.
But still though,
I would expect nothing less from the good people at Arrow. Which, by the way, they're not sponsoring us, but dadgummit, we'd love to have them.
They are, but that is an Arrow UK release, and it is a Blu-ray, so you have to have a Region B player to play those. So
yeah, unless they do the 4K, because 4K is regionless.
So it is. But no, I'm just saying I had to. Luckily, I just recently got it like within this year, the player, but I wouldn't have been able to play those, and I can't get the other one because it's out of print, so I had to go with the Arrow one. So
gotcha.
Yeah. So that's when I first saw this, and it was a great finality to binging all 5 of them, because I think it's the best way to watch this franchise is just binge all of them on a weekend or one night if you can. Because then you'll really get the full scope of Don Coscarelli's vision. And by the time it was done, I just felt like, this is amazing. And when it was done, I was like, you know what? This is my favorite horror franchise of all time. I'm not even joking. Literally, my favorite. I mean, people who've listened to me on the show before will know that my favorite horror movie of all time is Evil Dead 2. But Evil Dead is not my favorite horror franchise. I don't love all of the Evil Deads. I'm kind of hit or miss on Fede Alvarez's remake. All the other ones I like a lot. But Phantasm is the only horror franchise where you got 5 movies and they're all good. They're not all bangers, but they are all good. And they are all starring, with the exception of 2, the same 3 to 4 characters, same actors, over and telling one story, one continuous story over the course of 39, almost 40 years. And you stay with these characters for all that time. It's not like the Friday the 13th franchise where he's got a new group of teenagers that he's got to slaughter each movie. You might get one person from the previous movie who gets killed at the beginning. You know, it's not like that at all. You actually get to know these people. You get to love them. And by the time it gets to the end, it's just so beautiful what eventually happens to them. And it's not like, and they don't just do the same thing over and over again. They repeat themselves a bit, but they don't repeat themselves as much as some other franchises, like, we just mentioned. And then the Friday, and, I mean, I wouldn't say.
When you mention the other franchise, do note that they made a lot more money than these movies.
Of course they did, but you know what, Frank? You know what, Dave? Financial success does not dictate quality.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that you're right in a way, but the other ones do the way that they do things because they're following the damn trends. They know how to. They usually know how to. They know how to make money.
And I don't want to, and I don't want to disrespect those who love the Friday the 13th franchise. I know it has its fans, obviously, or they wouldn't still be trying to make those freaking movies. But yeah, I love this one so much as a franchise. It just works. I think it's probably one of the few that works best as a franchise. It feels, when it's done, it feels like you've taken a journey. You've taken a journey that's like one cohesive whole. I mean, as cohesive as it can possibly be. And I don't feel like you get, and by the end of this movie, I think you're going to get your best shot at closure that you're ever going to get from the Phantasm franchise. And that's why I love it so.
All right. So what about you, Dave? What was your first impression to this film? When did you see it?
So this is the first time I watched it all the way through. I did buy it like immediately when it first came out with the intention of watching it in 2016. I think it came out in December of 2016. And some reason I never finished it. I started watching it and then I was like some reason I didn't get into it. But then I always intended to watch it, and this gave me an excuse to actually watch it and sit down and watch it. Well, I think one reason was too, I was like, I'd probably need to rewatch all the other ones before watching this one. I kind of felt that when I started to watch it. I just didn't have time to do it. But
see, even he knows that's the best way to watch these movies.
Well, when you start watching this one, especially, I mean, I kind of vaguely like I knew I hadn't watched all of 4 either, and I was like, at the very least, I need to watch 4 because I remembered the other 3 pretty good. But I don't know. As far as I'm going to get into my thoughts of it later, but I'm just going to say this is my first time really watching this movie all the way through. And since we've been doing this podcast, I've rewatched every one of them, even though I wasn't able to be on the very first one, but I did rewatch it twice before and then wasn't able to do the podcast. So.
Yeah,
he's done his homework, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, one thing, I don't know if I ever said this about the first one. There's like one year, this is like a really weird thing that I did one year. It was like my birthday, and for some reason I had off work, and my girlfriend was at work, and I was sitting at her house, and I had a DVD of the first Phantasm, and I went to watch it, and I watched the whole thing, and then I sat there and I didn't want to get out of the bed, so I just watched it again, and I watched it like I think 5 times in a row.
Wow.
And it was like a really weird thing. I've never really done that before, but it was like it got better every time I watched it. You know, it's. But
Dave,
yeah, yeah,
I can honestly say I've never watched the movie more than twice in a row, and I think I've
yeah. It
watched
was a weird.
it twice
Yeah,
in a row like twice in my entire life.
it was like a marathon of like A Christmas Story on Christmas, but Phantasm. You know, just like over and over again. It was like, and the first time I watched, I remembered it seeing it before a long time ago, and I was like, this movie is really kind of low budget, and there's some bad parts, but it was like every time you watch it, the bad parts got even more awesome. You know, awesomely bad. It's like,
Oh Jesus! So well, I saw this movie. Well, I saw the trailer for the movie after they first put it out and they revealed the whole secret that they had made this damn movie because it was kept a secret for the longest time before they actually put it on a trailer. It came out, and then kind of like what they did with the Blair Witch remake. No one knew they were freaking making the Blair Witch movie until it came out at a film festival. And everyone, we got a new Blair Witch movie out. So,
yeah, I think a lot of people still don't realize that happened. They kind of it was like it's not really that bad of a film. It's pretty good, you know.
Yeah, apparently we got another one coming out too.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
well, it
Really?
also happened with Victor Crawley. Like he didn't tell people he was making another Victor, what was it, Hatchet movie. He just kind of made it at the spare of the moment, and call it Victor Crawley and put it out there, and like, oh shit.
Yeah.
So that was a thing for some reason. Filmmakers just hiding the fact they're making these sequels to these films like this.
Or prequels in the case of Pearl, which I actually prefer to the to X.
So I mean, even recently with the Evil Dead, the one that comes out next year, no one knew it. It was like, oh, we're making another one. Oh wait, we've already been shooting this second sequel. I was like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Evil Dead Rat.
Well, I guess, yeah, no, I guess, and they already got posters out for it, and I was like, yeah, they hadn't even put out the other one yet, Burn or whatever it's called. It's like, there's already Wrath. What happened to Burn? You know,
Burn's not out yet, but it will be soon.
So it's really cool what happened here because I had been waiting years and years for this one to come out after all the stuff that I had heard about Part 4 and the way that Part 4 ended. But by the time this one came out, it was in the back of my brain. I wasn't nearly as or really as enthusiastic to see it as I did between the second and third movie, where I was like waiting a bit for that one. But when I saw this, and I literally pre-ordered this fucking movie, waiting for it to show up, watched it the day it came in the mail, and was like, I have to watch this. I've been dying to watch this. My worst thing was that I did not go back and rewatch all the films like I should have gone back before watching this film. I still liked it. I liked it more when we rewatched it just now because we had just rewatched the first 4 movies. I liked it, but I didn't like it nearly as much as I did just now when we watched it. I was like, oh, this is the only way to watch this movie really is rewatch all of them and then watch this one as a culmination of all the ideals and all the things that came before it. That's how you enjoy Phantasm Ravager. Oh, shit. So
yeah,
it's like a love letter to all the other Phantasm films in a way. It wasn't directed by Don Coscarelli like the other ones, even though he did have a heavy hand in the production of it.
Oh, sure, he vetted the guy. The guy in question is David Hartman, and this is his feature film debut. In fact, as of this recording, it is his only feature film, at least live action feature film. He's done a lot of animation, though, before this. In fact, I saw there was a promo that they did for Phantasm Ravager where they said Reggie Bannister was talking with Coscarelli about when they're going to make Phantasm Ravager. And he was like, yeah, we got this guy, David Hartman. He does Winnie the Pooh. And I'm like, far out, man. I'm for it. I'm here for it. Well, and that's what he did. He did Winnie the Pooh. He also did he has branched out since this into more adult animation, like Twilight of the Gods for Netflix.
Yep.
And this really awesome looking animated series for Netflix called Arc, the animated series, which has a stellar voice cast and an amazing premise. I had no idea the show existed or the game on which it's based, but I'm really curious about it. But yeah. So
it's good. He's keeping busy, but I think his directing was solid in this. I thought,
I think it was too. I think the problem is that this was more of a film made for fans, kind of came out of nowhere and did nothing in terms of business, and it probably isn't a really good calling card for him to get bigger jobs with studios. So he was.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And also we have to realize that the initial plan was not to make a movie. Apparently, this started off as a web series, and Hartman was shooting a little. I'm not even sure how long each episode was supposed to be, but like you can kind of tell with the sort of fractured narrative that's going on here, like the stuff with him in the desert, the stuff with him in the mausoleum, stuff with him in the cave, like all that stuff were just like segments from the web series. And
Yeah,
it's really
but
cool to watch the deleted scenes too, because the deleted scenes show you the full scope of those little bits that don't seem to really pay off, like the stuff with him in the cave. That was supposed to go on for much longer in a different direction entirely. But yeah, it was all supposed to be that. And then like some point they stopped production on this web series, which was supposed to be just basically like a Reggie series. Like they weren't even going to call it Phantasm. It was just big, like it was like Reggie's Old Man Logan, basically kind of thing. But then they decided their cost creators like, no, we're going to do a feature now. And so then they did the feature stuff and just use the web series stuff to kind of fill it all out. Sort of kind of like what they did with the unused footage from the first Phantasm movie in Phantasm 4, but probably to better effect in this one, I think. I don't know.
yeah, I mean, I think it cuts together pretty good. It does.
Yes,
When they're talking about it on the director's commentary, it did seem like they didn't go too far into making it a web series. They didn't have a very good plan, but it was more like, let's shoot some things for Phantasm, see how it goes. And then at one point, Don was just like, "Yeah, this needs to be a movie and not a web series." So I know that they said that they shot. I hadn't seen that stuff you're talking about with the cave stuff. That's kind of interesting. I know that they shot like the stuff with Reggie and Don in the cabin, so that whole part was probably an episode from the web series, you know.
Yeah, actually, in the cave, originally Reggie was supposed to confront a what's called a giant dwarf, which I know is an oxymoron, but they literally had a 6 foot tall actor named Derek Mears who has been in I think he's been in the new Superman that came out. I think he also played the new Swamp Thing in the Swamp Thing series for CW. But he's the dwarf, and Reggie's supposed to fight him, and then out of nowhere comes Mike, at least the sphere version of Mike, and laser blasts the thing's head. And there's a sphere of Mike, and then there's this Jody sphere, and they just have a conversation together with him and Reggie, and that was the whole scene that they cut out from the web series into the movie. The movie goes,
Yeah.
of course, a different direction entirely in that very strange cave. But yeah.
I was not aware of that. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So, since we've already discussed how fragmented this film is, and I think it actually works really well with the story being told. Where do we go from here? Where do we want to start discussing this? This was not like any of the other films in this franchise.
No, it isn't. And yet I feel like it has more of the spirit of the first two than it had any right to. Even though the photography, I will say, is wildly different than the others. It has, I mean, the digital revolution had already happened between 4 and 5. And by the way, we keep saying 5, and some people might be confused to be like, where's the Roman numeral? It's in the V in Ravager, which I thought was fun that they started doing that with Oblivion and Ravager. So of course, if there ever is a Phantasm 6, they're gonna do something with that, I hope. But yeah, it's so everything looks very digital, everything looks very crisp. So if you guys, ladies and gentlemen, if you watch it, just kind of be aware of that. And there's a lot more digital effects, and not all of them look great. In fact, pretty much all of the gunshot wounds are all like digital squibs, and I hate digital squibs. But that's my one thing. But yeah, that's just me. Your mileage may vary, folks. And speaking of mileage, I feel like the way to start talking about this is to start at the beginning. That first shot. My goodness, I do love that first shot of this movie, which is Reggie walking in the desert with his quad shotgun swinging by, and he's in his ice cream man outfit, and it's just torn to shreds. It's a desert overcast, and a lone ice cream man walking along a lonesome highway.
No,
And the Phantasm music soars, and it's just amazeballs.
Now, one thing, there's definitely different timelines here, but this is a timeline that picks up from right after or not necessarily right after, but it does come from the end of 4, where Reggie goes through the space gate or the dimensional fork into this. He's been at this point in this particular timeline, he's been walking for quite some time, still looking for Mike. He's actually Mike was injured, and he's gone through to figure out a way to save him because the tall man takes the spear out of his head. And that whole timeline follows his journey from the end of 4 until I don't know exactly when, but maybe we can figure that out.
Yeah, like exactly. The big question of how much time has passed between the end of 4 and the beginning of this movie is a big open question that I don't think this movie ever really gets down.
Yeah.
I think later on when he finally meets up with Mike, he kind of explains it. And because he says that you've been on ice for a decade, and that basically what we're just seeing now, this opening gambit, didn't really happen. That it was a dream that Reggie had while being held captive by the tall man, and that Mike had Reggie's dream, and it's implied that the person wandering the desert for that decade, he said it was a decade. So if that's the case, then that means the tall man's assault and invasion of Earth probably happened around 2000 or 2001, which is really wild if you think about it. But yeah.
No, that's cool, man. Yeah, I didn't. You just answered my continuity question or my timeline question from this all being a dream from because there is a point in time where he changes wardrobe, but then when he wakes back up on the table about 45 minutes into it, he's back in the ice cream man wardrobe that he loses at the beginning of the film.
Yeah, and I was a little confused at first too, because I thought that mausoleum that he's in, and where he before he goes to the cave, that I swear that mausoleum is the exact same one that they fought the tall man in Phantasm 3. And so I thought when we see him on the gurney with that weird mind flare kind of apparatus thing nearby his head, next to that clear case of spheres that are just itching to eat his brain, I thought that whole lab was the mortician area in that mausoleum, in that funeral home in Phantasm 3, because it looks very similar. But then when the spoilers, when Mike's rebels group come in and liberate him, clearly this is not the past, it is the future, or at least the future from our perspective.
Right. Yeah. But
well, I'm going to say this. It's interesting that you're both trying to take it so literally.
We haven't even gotten to that part yet.
But you're trying to take everything so literally when the film, in my opinion, towards the end, doesn't do anything other than make it seem as though you don't know what's real and what's not, because what he's wearing flip-flops depending on which timeline he's in. And he constantly does that. So I always, when you originally discussed these films being someone's different nightmare sequence or one dream sequence, I don't take anything I see as fact when it comes to someone like Reggie, who I believe at this point is either a fractured brain due to his experience searching for Mike through the tall man, or it really is him having been put on ice for 10 years and the future is really screwed with him because he's been on ice for 10 years.
Or this whole thing is just a demented hallucinatory dreams of an old man in a nursing home who has dementia,
Yep.
which is the third timeline, quote unquote, that this movie keeps crossing back and forth to. And it's a big shock when initially that happens, because that break happens right after he gets he gets picked up by Dawn, or he picks up Dawn, the girl, the requisite girl on the highway. Which is the only thing about this movie I really don't like, is that they keep going back to that
I
beat.
thought it, I like Dawn, man, but
she's great.
Yeah, but
she's great.
I do want to back it up a little bit. I think you did miss something pretty important. Not necessarily, but a really fun scene when the chase scene with the balls chases the car out in broad daylight down the road.
Oh yeah, I laughed so hard during that whole thing. It was so fun because like Reggie's going down the road and he's complaining about, first of all, the heat, and he's like, "Man, I sure could use a rocket pop right now."
Yeah.
And I looked it up, and I'm like, "What is a rocket pop?" I thought he was talking about soda.
I thought he was talking about as a pop. I mean, like a popsicle,
popsicle. It's red.
Yeah, it's a
I used to have those all the time, man. When I felt sick or something, I guess
it's a red, right?
Yeah,
it's a red, white, and blue popsicle. Actually, it's called the bomb pop. Actually, which they probably changed the name of it to avoid copyright infringement.
They got different names for them. There's different companies make them.
Yeah.
I'm sure. But when I looked that up, though, it occurred to me, I'm like, wow, that whole little beat should have reminded me that yes, Reggie is an ice cream man.
Yeah.
And of all this time in all the movies, we never actually see him sell any ice cream or eat any ice cream for that matter. I mean, we see in Phantasm 4 a scene where Mike steals ice cream out of the back of his truck and eats it, but we never actually see Reggie eat any ice cream. And I thought to myself, man, this movie would have been way cooler if by the end of the movie, Reggie, at least in one reality, is sitting in the back of that CUDA eating an ice cream popsicle stick. That would have been the best. But, missed opportunity there.
So it's funny because he's walking in this desolate type of road. A guy pulls up in the CUDA, and he's like, he's stolen the car, and he asks the guy for a ride. Basically the guy agrees to give him a ride provided that he pays him, but then he gets in and he
gives him his money. Like, where does Reggie get all his money? We never know.
Yeah, then he finds out the guy stole it, and then he basically he takes a gun out of the glove compartment and makes the guy get out. It takes his clothes, he takes his wardrobe, so the guy's wearing Reggie's wardrobe for most of the film.
Yeah. But what makes it funny though is the fact that Reggie's like, I had a CUDA just like this, and one thing it had a 9mm in the center console. And he looks and there's nothing in there. Yeah. And then he's like, "Oh yeah, I was in the glove compartment." And he gets it out of the glove compartment, puts it right in the guy's face.
Yeah. But that eventually, right, pretty close to there. That's when the two spears appear out of nowhere. One of them goes into the back of the dude's head. Is out in the road with no clothes on.
Yeah.
Pretty graphic. That basically we're getting censored in all the other ones for this spear thing. I don't think they had as much trouble with the censors on this one because which I never got, that they hated that the censors hated the blood coming out of the spear, like that was the thing that was too much.
Yeah, I think in '79 the problem was twofold. Number one, I think what people found so gross about it was the close up of the drill going to the first guy's head, and that there was a malfunction with the prop, with the plate. It was supposed to just go right in, but the drill spun so much that it caught the fake flesh and made it look so much worse than it actually could have been. So that was number one. Number two, I think the reason why the first movie almost got an X rating for that whole sequence is because when that guy dies and his body twitches on the floor and Mike, the 13-year-old Mike, is looking at him, you can see urine pooling behind him. So it's one of the few instances in a movie where someone dies and you actually see the corpse urinate itself.
Yeah, but that's great. But they do talk about on the commentaries of two and 3 where that happens again, and they said each time they made them cut out parts of it, but then the fourth one doesn't have it in there at all. There's none. There's none. It doesn't happen. But then here we get at least, I think it's at least twice in this one,
Oh
if not
yeah,
three times.
and
I
this
think
one,
it's twice.
and
Yeah.
this one's not just humans who get chrome
Oh
heads
yeah.
speared. There's a freaking horse that
Yeah. Yeah.
gets. Oh,
Yeah. Damn
bad
horse.
news about your horse, man.
Yeah. But then, back, so the road. Then at this point, Reggie's driving down the road, and the spears start chasing him down the road, and it goes on for a while. It's a pretty awesome
Yes,
chase sequence.
it is a car
Yeah,
chase
yeah.
between car and spear.
Yeah,
We still get a car chase in the movie. We
Yeah.
get our car chase that we need with this. It's just a little different, but yeah, it's different in the good way.
It
Then
is.
Yeah, one of them comes into the car. He goes into the glove compartment with it, and he takes out the gun and just. I guess he tries to drill out of the glove compartment. He takes the gun and just shoots it into the glove compartment, and I guess
I love
kills
that.
that one. Yeah, it's great. We don't see that. I just remembered this. Like we saw it. Well, I think it was the third one for the first time that the spear's open and we see little brains inside of them. We never see that in this movie.
Yeah, they
again.
kind of forgot about that whole thing. I wish
Yeah,
they
yeah.
remembered that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at least in the
Bring that back
first.
up in this one at all.
Yeah, I know.
I was thinking that again. Like when he's shooting this thing, the spear, I was thinking, oh, he's shooting the brain in the spear, so that's why it's killing it. But then I would have thought, yeah.
And it also makes me wonder. I mean, we're getting ahead of ourselves here a little bit when I mentioned this, but like it makes me wonder what the construction of those gigantic, colossal
Oh yeah,
spears are. Like
maybe that's why they dropped the brain thing.
maybe because then you have to ask yourself, wait a minute, what's powering those things?
Yeah, right. Yeah, giant brain, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, but then the second spear, he gets out of the car and the spear's coming at him and you don't know if it's going to get him or not. And he takes the gun and he shoots it. And that's when he wakes up for the first time in the retirement home and his and Mike's pushing his wheelchair.
Yeah, it's so wild where he's just like it's just a tight shot on his older face because I think they shot the old folks home stuff a couple of years after they started.
They did say they put a lot of makeup on him to make him look even older than he was, and they put a lot of makeup on him in the other ones to make him look younger. But he's pretty much extreme makeup the whole time on Reggie, you know.
Yeah, and he looks like he does now.
Yeah, he definitely does. No, I agree. Maybe
Yeah.
I mean, he looks worse now than he does here, but he actually looks older. There's two different timelines with this retirement home stuff too. At least there's at least two of them, but he looks older in some of them than other ones.
Yeah, and this is the first time we see Mike in the movie because up until then we have not seen him meet up with Reggie at all. So when first time we see A. Michael Baldwin is in the old folks home in a nice little garden, and poor Reggie is like, "Where the heck am I? What is going on?" And Mike's like, "Calm down, Reggie. It's fine. The doctors told me I need to talk to you so to keep you
engaged,
your brain engaged. Got to keep you engaged because there's been a diagnosis and it's early onset dementia."
Yeah.
And he's like, "What are you talking about, man? We gotta." And he's all just raging about the call man and what he needs to do and everything, and he just will not accept this reality.
What's interesting about Mike too, Mike looks different than we've seen him before here. He's got like a little ponytail and he's wearing glasses.
He looks like an old hippie.
Yeah.
A professor / hippie. That's a good. Yeah.
Yeah. He looks. Yeah. And he tells Reggie that he was found wandering in the desert like Moses.
Yes. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
I do feel like that was a cool pull. And I think Coscarelli put that in there intentionally. We talked briefly earlier in Phantasm 4 how I think that Reggie's kind of like a Christ figure in Phantasm 4. This one, I feel like he's a Moses figure in the sense that he's wandering the desert, looking for the promised land, trying to save his people, or in this case, his person. But also, I think in a very deep cut sort of way, he is still a Moses figure in this sense. I don't think anybody out there is that familiar with this very obscure. There's a book called The Assumption of Moses, which is not in the canon of the Old Testament. It's not even in the Apocrypha in the Old Testament. But it's an intertestamental book that is basically about. So in the story of Moses, we know that Moses could not enter the promised land because of a sin that he had at the waters of Meribah. So he got to watch his people cross over while he just sat on a mountain and died, basically. But the Assumption of Moses tells the story of God. I'm sorry, it's not God. It's the archangel Michael and Satan are standing over Moses' body, and they have the whole book is just them debating about who gets Moses, because he's in this kind of in-between state, in between two lands. And these two figures, one good and evil, are basically trying to figure out who has claim over Moses' body and his soul. So I feel like Reggie is kind of in the same situation. He is trapped between two worlds, and his fate is being decided by forces beyond his control.
I think, well, I like the Moses idea better than him being like a Christ-like figure. It makes a little more sense.
Mike's more of a Christ figure in a weird way, but we'll get into that later.
When you talk about like good and evil and protecting a person, though, it does, like, Reggie kind of is the protector and the tall man's the evil person, where Mike is the person that is being fought over. It's even like in the dialogue between the tall man and Reggie.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I also feel like Mike kind of becomes this chosen one in a sense, because he's chosen by the tall man. And by the end of the series, he's got powers that put him in both worlds. He's still human, but he also has the abilities of the tall man. Well, minus the immortality version. But yeah, he's got almost everything the tall man can do. He can even build his own spheres, as we know from part 4. I'm a little miffed they didn't bother to try and improve on that in this version, but oh well.
Well, they don't focus that much on Mike,
No.
This is Reggie's movie.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I know we don't know exactly. Like, we put out all the possible possibilities earlier. Now, Reggie at one point, he does say that he's become, I don't remember the exact words, but something about he's not unstuck, but he's in a timeline. He's jumping. I think he said something to the extent of he's unstuck in time or something like that. But that's not the exact phrase. But it reminds me of Slaughterhouse-Five. You ever read or seen that film?
That's a good that
But
makes sense.
I was thinking about that because that character who is ultimately been captured by aliens and forced to, not really necessarily forced. That was a lot more. This is a lot more forceful. But he's been captured by aliens who make him have sex with like an actress who's really hot, and then they observe it and they have babies and stuff like that. But then he experiences his life from that alien abduction out of time, and so he's always bouncing back and forth from different parts of his life. And the book's not written chronologically, but that's, I mean, that from what I think when I think about it, that's the explanation for why it is the way that it is. But it's possible that he is unstuck in time or in different timelines here,
right?
And he does make that comment like later in the film.
Yeah, Mike does, where he's like, I was reading about what you were saying, and I'm not sure if he was just placating Reggie or if he really was actually earnestly looking. But he says that he was looking into, like, basically string theory is what he's describing. He doesn't call it that, but he talks about alternate realities existing in alternate dimensions that occupy almost the same space. And that if you get to a point where the fold is thinnest, you can go between those two. And that's although I loved how he describes it as cohesion spheres, because this franchise loves a sphere.
Yeah.
So basically he's saying that, like, all these, Mike's suggesting, and I think John Coscarelli, the writer, is suggesting by extension that all these different timelines, aside from maybe the beginning, which Mike says was a dream, are all different layers of reality that Reggie, for reasons, is bouncing back and forth. Although I do think, now that I think about it, I think maybe if Reggie is jumping back and forth between dimensions and alternate realities, it is because that is his special power. We've been harping on Mike being the special kid. We've been harping on Mike having, and the tall man sees it, that he's basically got the shine. He's got all these different abilities and things, and they go into that way in depth in part 2. But Reggie also has a supernatural ability, and he uses it in the first Phantasm when he uses his hands to close the space gate. So
Right.
I think Reggie, because he has some kind of harmonic thing in his being that allows him to open and close space gates, but I guess because he's getting older, or because the tall man's done something to him, that ability to open and close dimension doors is now out of his control.
Here's I did find the line Reggie says, and it's during that scene that you just referred to. He's like, Mike comes in, he says he had a dream last night, and Reggie says, I can't get oriented, I'm slipping in and out of time. And so that he says he's slipping in and out of time, like he can't control it. So it's very interesting that he says it that way. And then Reggie tells him that he had a dream. That's when we'll probably come back to that later. That's when Mike kind of in that timeline is in the retirement timeline is starting to think that things could really be happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
but there's also something about Reggie too, like you said, that he's got a power or something different. But I don't think it's not like, I think it was a happenstance because of him being where he was. The tall man even says at one point that he doesn't have that much more patience for him, and he actually tells Reggie that he doesn't exist. Which, like I said before, a possibility is that Mike conjured Reggie to help him. Like he is somebody that Mike brought into reality, and he's there to protect Mike and stop, from the tall man.
That's I completely forgot about that. That's interesting. And also I love how way later on, the tall man starts, calling Reggie. Reggie tells him to go to hell. And the tall man goes, which one, yours or mine? We both seem to be in it right now. And basically, the tall man says that basically you are my hell. You're the one who keeps, annoying for me.
Yeah, and Angus Scrimm gets a lot more dialogue in this one. He's probably got more dialogue in this than any of the other movies.
Probably all.
I know, because he gets like monologues. He gets the monologue and he kills it.
He does, and he gets to be Jedediah Morningside again.
Yeah. During that, when he was saying that to Reggie too, about him being a nuisance. Jeez, I don't have it in front of me, but let's talk about. I'll get back to it. But Jedediah Morningside, we did get to see the end of him and probably what happened to him, because we know that Jedediah Morningside goes through his space gate and never returns. Yeah. And so for what he says in this one, Reggie ends up in a hospice bed beside him, and Jedediah Morningside says, like, they brought us here to die, which that's a completely different timeline.
I'm not sure if that's a different timeline. I think it could just be a dream that the tall man's allowing Reggie to have, to probably intimidate him because of what happens at the end of that, when it seems as though the tall man possesses him, and his face just goes from kind to harsh, and he says, "You'll never be safe. I'm watching you always." And then he looks under the bed, and then, like, connected to his arm by one flesh is the lady in lavender, who's back and just has this horror hag face and just screams at him.
Yeah,
but it's possible.
It's awesome,
It is awesome, yeah. But I do think it's possible that maybe, because we never know where Jedediah Morningside went to, if in fact this tall man is not him, if he didn't transform into him. It's possible that, and Tukovsky really kind of hinted at this in the commentary, I think, to part 4. He said, he speculates out loud, is Jedediah Morningside a desiccated husk somewhere? Yeah. Or is he still, putzing around somewhere? So it's possible that room that Reggie went to in his dream, which we have established in this franchise, that the characters can travel to places that exist, in the dream world, kind of like an astral plane type thing. That totally happens in part 3. So it could be that this place that Reggie went to is where Jedediah Morningside was being held to die. It's like a prison.
I felt that though. I felt that. I agree.
Yeah, like maybe the tall man put him there after he'd outlived his usefulness.
Yeah, I think that it gives a closure to Jedediah Morningside too. It was nice to see him again. It's nice they didn't ignore that. And Angus Scrimm got to play him one more time. Apparently, that was the last scene that they shot with him for the film, and the last scene he passed away before the movie was released. So.
Yeah, that hits a lot different when you know that dying old man you see on the gurney is in fact a dying old man.
He looks really bad in the scene.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah, but he apparently did get to see the film. They said they showed it to him before he passed away, so that's at least there's that. And he was excited about it.
Yeah. They did the same thing to Christopher Lee, I think, with the Hobbit. I think that he was able to see that before he passed. And apparently, apparently he made them watch the Fellowship of the Ring, at least his nurses and everybody.
Yeah, I read that.
Yeah.
So,
but anyway, they go to we mentioned her briefly before. We would be remiss if we didn't mention Don Cody, who plays Dawn. I love how this franchise loves naming actors after their character, or vice versa. I feel like they didn't say this specifically, but the director said that he'd worked with her before and he wanted her for the part, so he wrote it with her in mind. I think he just named the character that because it was more like a placeholder. He's like, I'm going to cast her as this character. I'm going to in the script call her Dawn. It was probably just he didn't bother to change it.
Yeah, he had her in mind. I've actually done that before too. I got to the point where it was like I wrote it for somebody, and then I just got the shooting, and it's like we'll just fuck it. We'll just call them by their name. It's like
sometimes it's easier.
Yeah, it's easier. See, but it's funny. It's like this one actress I was doing that too, and actually it was a different character she was playing, but I kept accidentally writing her name in there on one thing. So the next time I wrote something for her, I just made her name, so I wouldn't keep writing her name back in there. So,
well, Don Cody, and she also been again spoilers. This movie, she plays 2 characters. She plays. She has a leg up on all the other women of Phantasm in that she's still in this movie after she's dead.
She's still, even though she plays 2 characters, she doesn't get that much screen time, So it's,
I know.
She gets more than
and she's not nearly as memorable as Rocky, but we'll get back to that.
I thought I liked her a lot, though. I mean,
I do too. I do too. Not to take anything away from Miss Don Cody, I happen to believe that she is the cutest of all of the Phantasm ladies, but that's probably because I have a thing for redheads.
Yeah, I agree with that. I thought she was just adorable. The one before this one was somewhat hotter, I think. But I thought she was definitely had this kind of girl next door type of vibe. So she's been in and Don Cody's been in such classics, legitimate classics as Laser Fart, which is a TV series apparently that had some big names behind it. And if you think that's a euphemism for something, no, the movie the show was about a guy who could fart lasers. It's literally what it is. There's no way that was on TV though. That had to have been like a web series.
It probably was a web series. Yeah, for sure. But apparently she was also in Pleasantville. With Tobey Maguire and Reese Witherspoon. Apparently, she played Betty Jean in Pleasantville. So This is probably her biggest claim to fame, though, is Phantasm Ravager.
Yeah,
her house is pretty nice too, by the way.
Yeah. They got a farm cabin, I guess. But apparently, the outside was shot at a real farm, and the inside was shot in Reggie Bannister's real house. Which is
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Keep down costs. While they're still shooting on like a web series budget, he just shot at his house.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. It looks like a nice little cabin out in the California hills.
Yeah. I gotta tell you though, before I listened to the commentary about how they did it, it wasn't obvious. It's not like I didn't feel like they had shot it for a web series. It looked like they shot it on purpose for, the way that it looks and the way that it cuts together. They did a really good job at doing and
Oh yeah,
piecing it together that way.
for sure. And we also have somebody else in the picture. Dawn explains that this whole farm thing was basically she inherited from her parents, and that when her parents died and left the farm to her, that she also inherited the farmhand Demeter.
Yeah. It was
who
supposed to be he's supposed to be Bulgarian or something, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, apparently he is speaking Bulgarian in
Yeah,
this
yeah,
movie.
yeah.
So Daniel Roebuck, the actor playing
Yeah.
him, apparently can speak Bulgarian.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, they said that actually they were telling him how to do it while they were shooting it.
Oh, okay.
They had it like they had like a translator or something, but he's convincing. I don't obviously I don't speak Bulgarian, but I believed it.
I
Yeah.
believe it too. When I rewatched
Yeah.
it, I forgot he was in this movie. So when I was watching it, I was laughing my ass off. Because
You're like, oh my gosh, it's the great Daniel Roebuck, star of such classics as Rob Zombie's The Devil's Rejects, where he played Morris Green. And I think ever since he did that movie, he's been in pretty much every single Rob Zombie movie he's ever done.
Yeah, he's in
before that though.
what is he? I mean, I recognize him before this too, but he's in Lost. He played Arts. You guys watched Lost? Yeah, he got exploded by the dynamite.
Oh yeah, he's done a crap ton of stuff. A lot of TV.
Yeah,
a lot
he was
of
like, what was it? Madlock? Is that what it was?
I think
He was like,
am
I think it was he was like a main character on one of those type of like law shows. Like I think it was Madlock.
Yeah, and he was also worked with Don Coscarelli once before as a hearse driver in Bubba Hotep.
Right. I was going to mention that, but it's yeah, but no, man, like that's obviously maybe Don pulled him from that because he knew him, from.
I think that could be, but also, you know what? I'm eagerly anticipating his next role where he plays the general in Attack of the Killer Tomatoes 5 Organic Intelligence.
I like Daniel Roebuck though. I was going to mention too with Bubba Hotep. This movie's got some Bubba Hotep in it as far as that retirement home stuff. A lot of that reminds me of it's like kind of pulled from that a little bit,
Yeah, the long corridors that Reggie wanders through, and there's menace around every corner. He even sees like a random old guy coming along and looks at him blankly and then walks on. Yeah. That does feel very Bubba Hotep-y.
Yeah, almost all those type of scenes like that kind of feel like that, but Roebuck and Demeter, they call him Demeter, I guess after the Dracula's that vote from Dracula, maybe I don't know.
That's what I was thinking. The ship that carries Dracula.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah. I didn't even think about his name until you guys brought it up. I was like, oh yeah, Demeter.
And the spear gets him in the neck. Very vampire like. Huh.
And it's really gruesome. That's the other gruesome spear death here. It's maybe more gruesome than ever before, other than him not peeing all over himself. It's,
I
don't know though. Now that I think, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I love Daniel Roebuck.
Oh, he's great. Yeah, but like now that I think about it, though, I'm pretty sure. I don't know. I feel like the mortician's deaths in Phantasm 2, where the sphere goes up inside him and comes out his mouth, is pretty. Probably number one.
Yeah, Phantasm 2 is so awesome, man. It's that one's a real banger, really, of the series. I think.
That's what he had when he had a bigger budget to kind of extrapolate and do some really creative shit on that movie. I mean, it stands up despite the fact that it doesn't have a Michael Baldwin in it. It does stand up because of the production values.
Right.
I think we've discussed that before. Like if the movie was successful, just imagine what Coscarelli would have been able to do with these subsequent sequels to this.
Oh man, if it was successful, I think by the time he made this, which he would have made way earlier, he probably would have used Robert Avery's script for this movie. That was the original script. Robert Avery, for those of y'all out there who don't know, was I think one of the co-writers and producers of Pulp Fiction, and he's kind of a legendary producer from the 90s. Yeah. And he wrote a script for the fifth Phantasm, and it was going to be called Phantasm Forever, with a PH for the forever. But it had huge set pieces. It had the only thing from that script that has survived is basically a stock footage montage in this movie of gigantic spheres leveling cities with huge lasers and stuff like that, and a big plague destroying people, which, by the way, was when I finally saw this, was right around COVID. And like, oh, wow,
Yeah.
that's weird.
It happened right. They made it before COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's always, like they say, it's coming from a virus. It does remind me a lot of War of the Worlds with that stuff, especially once you see the apocalyptic outside with the big spears in the sky, like shooting
Yeah.
things.
It's very Independence Day, but also
Yeah.
it reminded me retroactively. Well, I mean, I thought about this when I mentioned this when we talked about Phantasm 4. I know Coscarelli hadn't really written this whole thing out in his head beforehand, but it's a throwaway line in part 4 when Jody takes Mike to the future and sees an empty LA.
Yeah.
And the tall man's walking down it, and Jody tells Mike, "We got to get out of here. There's still a chance of infection."
Right.
And he says nothing else. And I thought, ooh. And then you come to this movie and you see what he was talking about, because apparently at some point the tall man's endeavors got cranked up in the late 90s, and he really got good at it. And I guess he figured out a way to get on without Mike, because it seemed like the whole thing was he wanted Mike to be a successor in Phantasm 4. And apparently Mike disappointed him, and he decided to just move on. And that's when he started really cranking up with the giant spheres, just engaging with the army. You see all this stock footage of Black Hawk helicopters with machine guns trying to shoot them out of the air. And then there's a virus. And what the virus does is it makes your head swell up and explode, which basically is what the spears are supposed to do to you.
Right.
So basically, anybody who doesn't get killed by the spear or get mauled by a dwarf zombie, Jawa zombie, or killed by the Gravers, which, by the way, by the time you see the Gravers in this one, it's established that now the Gravers are full zombie. They were human in part 2, but now they're full zombie. So anybody who doesn't get killed by any of those, guess what? You got a virus that's going to kill you too. So that's how the tall man kind of takes over the world, with only a small remnant of humans, freedom fighters, led by Mike, of course, are sticking around trying to save what's left of the world.
Our reminder of a world like the Terminator world, where there's just patches of humans left while robots take over. This one's very, very post-apocalyptic like that one.
I feel like this movie is Inception, Mad Max, and Terminator, and The Bucket List, all by way of, are all thrown together in a blender, and by way of the Phantasm universe. That's what this movie is.
There is an interesting thing when the tall man's talking to Reggie, and this kind of ties in a little bit to what you're saying there, but the tall man he tries to make a deal with Reggie. And this is, if we're talking about this, it could be the dream, but the tall man seems to want Reggie out of the way. He makes him an offer to give him back his family if he just goes and minds his own business.
Yeah, the devil's bargain.
Yeah. But I guess the biggest question about it is the tall man's worried about Reggie. Like, Reggie could cause something, can stop the tall man, or so whatever he's trying to do, which Tallman says he has plans to make things better for everyone, and he wants Reggie to just stay away until everything completes itself. So I guess the one question is the tall man for real? If Reggie stays away and it completes itself, will everything be better? Or is he just is his real plan to destroy the world? Is Reggie coming back, destroy the world? Or is it vice versa,
Oh, I think that the tall man is for real. I do think he wouldn't have bothered to engage with Reggie at all if he wasn't sincere. So I think what's going on there is that tall man has finally figured out that he's not going to get rid of Reggie easily. So he's giving him an easy way out. I think because he knows deep down inside that if Reggie makes it to Mike, they'll be unstoppable, and like they'll keep coming at him. Although I think the tall man is convinced that he has already won, and he's gonna eventually destroy the world, and that's his goal. Is because he's death, and he's Satan, and he wants to, metaphorically speaking, and he wants to destroy the world and create it in his own image, basically. I mean, look at the sky, that beautiful long CGI shot when you see what the world is. They open the door and Mike's like, it's his home now, and you see the sky. You see that basically he's just turning the Earth into the red dimension all over again. He's just conquering the world and turning it into like his own planet. He's probably going to also figure some way to like increase the gravity or something or whatever, which, by the way, that's not a aspect they deal with when they finally do go to the red dimension at the end of the movie. But it seems like he's just wanting to kind of colonize this dimension. I believe.
No, I think you're right there. And the more you say that, the more I think it kind of reminds me of Hellraiser when the Cenobites think that what they're doing in their world is good, that's what everybody wants, and he thinks everybody wants what's this shitty stuff that's coming from his world, all these dwarf monsters and gas mass zombie dudes. He thinks that's good, and he wants to bring it to Earth, and everybody's going to be better off once that's implanted. And I think he's for real, like what he says that, but of course people of Earth will typically disagree with that. I would hope.
Well, actually, I mean, I do think that in the beginning, at least, there were some humans that he was able to convince to come to his side, because all those mortician helpers in the second and third movie, they were human. We know this because they bleed red blood. So either the tall man was able to hypnotize them and like subvert their will to come to his will, or they're like I think I said this before, that they're like the Jews in the Holocaust who were working for the Nazis and would basically lure fellow Jews into the ovens, because the Nazis had somehow convinced them that we'll kill you last if you help us. I think that's probably what the deal the tall man gave to those people is basically, I'll turn you into a sphere zombie last if you help me kill your fellow humans, which is super dark. But we know that sometimes people can do that sort of thing when they think there's no hope. And I think that's the heart of this particular movie and this franchise as a whole, is that it's about hope and fighting for it when there seems to be no hope. Because like the tall man says to him in that scene, he's just like, he can't understand why Reggie is so freaking obsessed with Mike and Jody, and why you're so obsessed with his friends. Like I could give you your family back. I could give you a normal life. It's like, I mean, he comes through the space gate in the white room and he's like, we're back in 1979 now. It's 3 days before any of this happened. And then the tall man seems to imply that if I let you off here, I can prevent everything that happened to you back in 1979. You will have your own timeline where everything's smooth sailing. And the implication here is that, either that world will just go on, and then the other dimension will just be destroyed by the tall man. But he's basically telling him, look, you guys are just meat sacks. You humans, these feeble emotions that you cling to are just chemical reactions in your brain, and things like that. You think that all these things that you think are so much higher than me, like he can't fathom the idea of a soul or of a morality that's bigger than just, biology. And I think that's super interesting that you have your most evil personification of all that is monstrous and death itself, and you give him those words to say. And I think that's very interesting. And that Reggie is going to fight against that idea. Everything that he does is fighting against that idea, which is strictly speaking in philosophy called nihilism. That is just nihilism in a nutshell, that there's nothing more than human beings, than we're just meat robots. And that's the way the tall man sees the world. And that's really interesting that's what this movie says. That's what you have to fight against. That's the rising tide that's coming. And you have to fight against it, even though there seems to be no way you can beat it. Because even by the end of this movie, spoilers, they haven't really defeated the tall man. They're still in pretty much the same space that they were, except they're together again. Mm-hmm. And yeah.
Trio. Well, a trio with 2 extra people with them.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, maybe they do. I mean, there's definitely like there's some questions about what timeline's what here, which we'll talk about when we get closer to that. But well,
oh yeah, I looked at my notes here. I couldn't find it before, but like his dialogue, Tall Man's dialogue is so just like he's saying stuff like you're so obsessed, like these frail human emotions again. Your kind are simply sacks of skin and water, and a few random electrons frying off in your puny little brains. You're ready to annihilate yourself for this feeble sensation you call loyalty.
Yeah. That's what he get. Yeah, that's what he gets that monologuing going. It's cool though, and it's a different take on the tall man too, because we'd never seen him like like give somebody a deal like that and then get upset when they don't take it. And it does make me think that Reggie is a much more powerful force than the tall man wants to let it. He doesn't want him to know how powerful he can be.
Yeah.
He says he's like an unwanted pawn in the game.
Yeah.
And his use for Reggie is at its end. And so he's trying to convince him that at that point he's like kind of screw you, because he's like I got this awesome deal for you. You take it, you just go off and you can have everything you want and you can chill and live. And then he's like, okay, yeah, I'll take it, but I need Mike and Jody back too. And he's like, yeah, motherfucker, that ain't happening. It's like, but then on top of that, after he finds out, okay, you know what, you're not gonna play ball, so screw you. And then he gets like upset, and he what he says there, I think is what he really thinks, because at that point he's just like, that's what he, like we talked about earlier. He even says that he's not real. He says Reggie's his bad dream, which could be taken at face value, or it could just be that he's spitting stuff out because he's mad that he doesn't get what he wants. And what's interesting after that sequence, after he doesn't take the tall man's deal, that's when he wakes up in the post-apocalyptic future, back in the Ice Cream Man wardrobe that he discarded earlier on in the film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was gonna wonder how we reconcile that, because that's a very blatant return back to that.
What Thomas already said earlier, that he thinks, well, it could be different timelines for him, but Thomas did say that he thought that everything that was happening before that in this particular timeline was in kind of taking place inside of Reggie's head.
Yeah, because that's what Mike tells him when he picks him up. He's like, we've been searching for you forever. We finally found you. You've been on ice for 10 years. And that other people have been hooked up to similar machines. And basically they are machines that the tall man apparently is constructed to drain people's, not just their physical brains, but like their psyche of all their information. That's how tall man got all the information probably that he needed to launch his assault on humanity. He wasn't getting what he needed from the brains of small town America. He had to get them from other people, which also makes me wonder if maybe that's what he did to poor Lisa in Phantasm 2 after he cut her head off. Probably hooked it up to one of those things and downloaded all her information so he could use it against Mike. But Reggie's such a catch for him, if that's the case. So he can get inside Reggie's mind and get everything that he knows, and also get him to basically just like have a psychotic break and just crumble to pieces, and then maybe turn him into a sphere or something. That was probably his eventual end game. But thankfully he was saved by our new character in this movie, a little person named Chunk, who...
Yeah. Really great addition to this, I think.
Yeah, he's a little guy with all kinds of attitude, and he's just he's got huge guns and stuff, and he's basically like the grunt man for Mike's revolution. But that's also where he meets Jane, the alternate reality version of Dawn. And this is the only thing that puts a little creak in my theory that everything up until this point was in Reggie's head, because he sees Jane and thinks, I saw you. I was in your house. I wrote a song for you. And starts doing the song.
Yeah.
But it makes me think, wait a minute, how could she be in his dream if he never saw her until now? So that's the only thing that kind of puts a damper on my whole theory, but I'm still sticking with that theory.
It makes how you look at it in the course of the entire series. We saw the similar thing in part 2, where Mike sees the girl, like Alchemy, as a corpse before they actually meet Alchemy.
Yeah, I don't think it's a dream though that he has. I mean, if it is, it could be something else. But if it is, it's not. It's really he's on this table with these machines. That the tall man's making him see whatever he's seeing. The tall man is aware of Jane, so he makes the girl look like her. You know. So, I mean,
do you think he implanted Jane in his head?
I think he was just trying to whatever he's trying to accomplish with that machine. It's just part of the process, I guess.
Or it could be,
know.
or it could simply
clarity for a lot of stuff in the film on purpose, is to make us think like we're doing now, to give us alternate ideals. It's not trying to be concrete.
Of course.
It's part of the allure of this particular movie in particular, unlike the last previous films that tended to be a little bit more concrete than this one. We have a lot of stuff that we're digging into, because we're digging into Reggie's brain from separate timelines and trying to figure out if they are dream sequences, if they're real, if any of this is at all real, because it's fun to kind of talk it over and try and figure out our own hypothesis based on that.
I think that definitely the director, and he co-wrote this with Don Coscarelli. I think he was pulling, the other ones do have a lot of ambiguous stuff in them. I think he was pulling all of that all the ambiguous ideas and really making them even more.
Oh yeah,
more interesting. But Jane, it could have just been a way to bring the actors back because they wanted her in there. But
that's really what it is. But in world though, question mark. In world though, because she has zero recollection. She doesn't even say, "Oh, I had a sister named Dawn." Nope. She's like, "Nope, not ringing a bell at all." And it's just like, whoop, there she goes, and we don't see her again until the tall man comes back, and some Graber zombies attack, and we got some nice gunfights. And by the way, people don't know, up until this point, poor Reggie has not had. Well, he's had his quad shotgun a little bit at the beginning of the movie when he was at Don's house. He had his trunk full of all his weapons, including a samurai sword that pokes out from the bag that he never uses unless you see the end credits, which has some deleted scenes on it. But he's also if you look closely, he's even got Rocky's nunchucks in there, which I think is nice.
Yeah, he does pull that out. Yeah,
but
shows like most of the weapons. Yeah,
but in the whole middle of the movie, he doesn't have hardly any guns. He's just walking around. He even says, "Hey, is this a Chunk? Hey, maybe you should give me a gun, so I can defend myself." And Chunk's like, "I don't know if I trust you yet."
Well, Jane's in that sequence. It's funny the way that she's acting with Chunk. It's almost like the way he acts around her. It seems like they're a couple because he seems to be. Yeah, I think they are because he seems to be a little jealous when Reggie's talking about her and him writing her a song and all that,
Yeah, because we find out from the end of the movie that Chunk's kind of a ladies' man. So
he's trying to be, but I don't think we're Rocky. You're not gonna. it's not gonna work. But
No.
maybe with Jane though. But
Yeah, I think Jane's down for that sort of thing with the little guys, you know.
yeah. She definitely there's definitely like some chemistry between them, especially the facial expressions and reactions between the two. It seems to be quite intentional that
If
they got something
yeah,
going.
if only she'd stuck around for a little bit longer.
There is some like walking down the hall with her with the big gun and all that. And I wish they do. I mean, eventually do. She gets kidnapped and becomes like a damsel again. But
Oh yeah, Big Gun. I
yeah,
forgot to mention you.
yeah,
I'm glad you mentioned that because there is a scene because this movie blows. Like, every movie tries to annihilate the tall man in a different way. This movie doesn't bother to do that. This movie just blows the tall man up in three different ways. The first time it blows him up is in the subterranean sewers, and Mike sees the tall man down the hallway, and he's got a rocket-propelled grenade launcher, and Chunk comes in and loads it up for him. Boom! Blows up the tall man, and then they blow him up again
yeah.
later, and then they blow him up at the end of the movie too.
Yeah. They blow him up. When they blow him up in the red world,
Yeah,
they may have like that. I don't know. I guess maybe not. I guess he's still going because then the end scene happens and all that. But
well, yeah, I mean, he does show. I mean, when we get to that climactic scene and the red dimension, he does actually finally show us what we all knew from Phantasm 2. Sorry, actually from the end of from the end of 2, the beginning of 3. We all suspected that the tall man had a stockpile of different bodies that were all the same body. He had like a clone army basically of Angus Scrims to choose from, and he finally shows us that like I am in dimensions you haven't even heard of or can't even imagine. And we see this long corridor in a white room. Basically, it looks like a bunch of Agent Smiths, in the Matrix.
they're sitting there waiting to be used, I guess. But
yeah,
infinite dimensions, infinite possibilities, infinite tall.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting sequence to see that, because then the things that we're seeing from Reggie's perspective is just 3 possible dimensions of which he's stuck between, unlike the tall man who just goes in between them all and knows his consciousness between each of them. Reggie is kind of stuck between 3 different ones, not knowing what's real or which one's not real.
I mean, the effects are kind of janky in that moment, but it looks epic. It's got a big feel to it. Yeah.
You know what? When I rewatched it, I kind of went with the flow with it. To be honest with you, it didn't take me out of the movie anymore, like it did like the first time, because I hadn't watched the first 4 movies before watching it. I was going with the flow with it because of the visual effects and the special effects in the last 2 movies, so I was fine with it. It was
same.
It was being ambitious. I like that in an indie movie, and that's what this is. It's an indie movie. This isn't a Hollywood studio movie. It's an indie movie, and I like it when it's ambitious.
Yeah. So you have Mike and Reggie teaming up together, and they put on some gas masks, and he's like, "Are we going where I think we're going?" Yep. And so they go in through a space gate, and they're trying to save Jane ostensibly, which they fail at miserably. But anyway, they go to the space gate, and they got their guns, and they're in the red dimension. There's this huge chasm between the 2 of them, and then there's the tall man on the other side with his army of dwarves, and that's where we have this conversation, which is technically impossible because you've got 2 guys with gas masks on, and another guy who's like 50 feet away, and who can barely get his voice above a whisper. So
I guess but things are different in the red dimension. You can just hear. Yeah, we've never been there, so we don't know.
I think what it is is telepathy. I think the tall man's speaking to them in their minds, and they can speak to his mind. I think that's what it is. That's all it is, really.
Yeah.
I like the fact that we're finally seeing, like, we're getting a really good scene here in the red dimension when we only be glimpsed and peeks at it in the previous films. So
yeah, I agree. I just wish that they had stuck with the whole gravity thing. Like they should be like straining to keep themselves up, because we established in 1 and 2 that the red dimension's gravity is different. Like they're when Reggie and them just get through the space gate the first time, they're crawling because it's hard. That's why the dwarves are dwarves.
Yeah.
Because the gravity of the red dimension shrinks them.
Maybe it's not the same one though. I don't know. Yeah.
Keep in mind, that's what Mike thinks when he's a kid in the first one. That may not be true.
Well,
But when he goes through in the second movie, it's the same.
Yeah.
Well, no, it looks like they're falling into a chasm, and it looks like they're crawling, but doesn't really say that it's a gravity issue. It could be a multitude of different issues.
I don't know.
That's one of those things that is not explained. Like it's one of those things that's not explained, and we're not given enough details to fully kind of make that cohesive. We just kind of assume that, just like the Mike character assumes a lot.
Yeah. I don't know.
We see it though. Like I don't know, but
you see the one scene where Reggie is crawling, and the one body is about to grab him, and he gets pulled back through. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's a gravity thing. I'm just saying.
Yeah, possibly not. It definitely would have made this scene a lot more difficult if they had to do that. If they had to hear about those rules, it would have made the scene more challenging. They definitely wouldn't have been able to understand what anybody was saying in there. So
well, they also might not have. Although Chunk might not also have been able to do what he does, because one thing apparently Chunk is very good at in the rebellion is that he's able to infiltrate the tiny zombies, because that's what happens in this. Is like the secret weapon is that Chunk is hidden amongst the other zombie Jawas, and he runs up next to the tall man, reveals himself, and says, "Hey, Tiny, where the F do you think you're going?" Boom! He suicide bombs him, basically. Because he's got a bunch of grenades strapped to him.
Yeah.
And blows him up for the third time.
Yeah, it makes you just think he kind of, I guess, I don't like that. Yeah, I don't like that Jane gets killed there. It's cool that he blows it. It's cool that he was infiltrating and stuff. And, him blowing himself up, and the tall man's going to come back. Well, I mean, but maybe at that point, maybe he could have killed him for good, but I'm pretty sure he hasn't. Well, maybe, the weird thing is that we don't see the tall man again after that happens.
That's true. We don't. That's a good point.
But maybe that does kill him, because he's in the red dimension and he blows him up in there.
I don't know. Actually, I was thinking about this earlier today. And I was going to save this discussion, this little tangent I'm sure we're about to go on. I was going to save this for the end, but we might as well not, because we're here at it now. I was thinking about that, like at the end when Mike is talking about what they need to do, they need to fight harder, they need to fight smarter. We need to go up north where it's cold. He doesn't like the cold.
Yeah.
So, and then I thought to myself, like I said, this movie's about sticking up, and having hope when there's no hope to be had. And then I kept thinking to myself, well, is there any way that they could destroy the tall man? Is there any, judging from what we know of these 5 movies, is there any way you think they could actually do him in for good? I put that to the panel here. Is there any way if you could probably figure out a way to destroy the tall man once and for all?
I don't think we have enough information. I think go ahead. Yeah. No, I think if we knew how to close the portals for good and not have them reopen, that would be the way to get rid of him. But we don't know how that works exactly.
No. That was what I was about to say, Dave. It's the portals. We don't know how they work, how he controls them, or how we can permanently close them. I don't I've never really got the impression, we've discussed the first film, and you guys seem to think that for your interpretation that Reggie closes the gate in the first film. I don't really think he closes the gate. He just kind of he modifies it. I don't think it closes. Like I don't think any of the gates actually close. You may stop it. You may put a pause on it. You may temporarily uh, prevent it from doing what it normally does. But I don't think it ever closes them. Or at least not in the sense that I would call close. But the only way I think you would have to be able to defeat the tall man would be to close the gates. Without the gates being here, he would never be able to come back. But the thing is, we're not given enough information about the nature of the gates themselves.
Mm. I had this idea that, and you're right, it has something to do with the gates. Is that I was going back, my mind was going back to Phantasm 4. And I thought to myself, is time travel is probably the best way to undo him. Because if Mike had just figured out how to time travel back to Jebediah Morningside, because we don't know about how the gates work, but I'll tell you what, if we time travel back to Jebediah Morningside again, we know the man who built the first one. And if anybody knows how they work, it's that guy, because he built the first one. So I thought, well, they already tried to, end him before he became the tall man, but they couldn't. So in order to avoid the paradox, what you would have to do is you'd have to go back in time, even before Mike first met Jedediah. And basically Mike would have to, or originally somebody would have to basically tell Jedediah everything and say, whatever happens, you have to go through that gate. That can't be avoided. But what we can do is we can sow the seeds of the tall man's destruction now and basically pull a Death Star thing on him, like in Rogue One, where the guy who built the Mads Mikkelsen character who built the Death Star for the Empire, he couldn't not build the Death Star for the Empire. But what he could do was he could put a small defect in the Death Star's exhaust port. And if you shoot a beam or something down that port with an X-Wing, you'll blow the whole thing up. So I think what they could have done is they could have said, hey, Jedediah, why don't you make a flaw inherent in the design of the space gates, or give us like the harmonic resonance code or whatever to the gate. And so that later on in the future, we take that knowledge back with us and then use it against the tall man to maybe close all the gates, or in the very least, be able to trap the tall man between two gates. Because if you can't destroy the tall man, which seems pretty obvious, you can at least trap him. I think it's probably the only thing they could hope to do, is that, if you could get him stuck in between two gates, he'd be stuck there for all eternity. And I don't think it's a good idea, though, to keep him stuck in the red dimension, because in the red dimension, that's his turf. He's got infinite resources over there. He'll eventually figure out a way to get out. No, I think you have to trap him in some other dimension, or you have to trap him in our dimension with no access to all his other bodies. So that way, if you killed him in our dimension with no access to his bodies, you kill him forever. So,
well,
there you go, Don Coscarelli. If you're out there listening, have that be the plot in the next one.
Yeah.
I'm giving that to you for free, Don.
Any thoughts, Dave?
No, I mean, I guess it's it might work. I don't know. I mean, it's like you say, what clearly you go back in time, it's gonna, whatever happened, and it's not going to change. But you can, like you said, make something, like plant something for the future that may hopefully work. But of course, you giving him the information is, well, how it starts, but it was never you could never change how the information was given to him. If you're the person that went back in time and gave him the information, then that happened.
Yeah, and I just realized, what if the tall man also knows everything Jedediah Morningside knows?
Yeah,
he would probably also know what's going on.
Well, it's weird, though, to say the tall man looks like Jebediah Morningside, and so it's almost like he was a different organism before Jebediah went into it, and it kind of was it was a side effect of opening this and going into this red dimension, or whatever dimension he first went into, that created whatever the organism was it was before, it basically took the likeness of Jebediah Morningside.
Yeah,
And
and we never know why. We never know why he picked that guy. It may
I
simply be he was just the first guy who went through, and so that's what he assumed. We know that the tall man as an organism is a shapeshifter. We know this that he didn't like take over his body. It's not like a demon
yeah,
possessing. He created a humanoid body that took on the shape of probably the first human that he saw.
right.
So
Yeah, I think that's how it went down.
yeah.
And but he's but when it took it, and apparently it can't necessarily when it replicates a body, it looks just like the tall man, and it doesn't just make a bunch of different ones, which it possibly could, but instead it maybe it can. Maybe since it chose him to begin with, it can't really make other bodies and different to look differently.
Like Mr.
And we-
Smith in the Matrix films. There's a billion of them out there.
Yeah. Although we aren't told if those billion always existed or if he made those after the fact.
No.
We don't know. In fact, I had a theory one time that people have speculated for years as to the origin of the Lady in Lavender. Like, what is
Right.
she? And I thought to myself, well, it's possible that she was a previous incarnation of the tall man. That our world is not the first world that he's conquered. He's conquered maybe millions of other dimensions, alternate realities before this one. He's just made his way to this one. And that's what we're seeing. And that maybe in a previous universe or in a previous dimension, he conquered that world through the Lady in Lavender. And that's just his usual a form he likes to go back to. So who knows what other
Yeah. I mean, the Lady in Lavender is, I mean, I guess it looks very human, but I mean, these other, maybe other, I mean, in this, other worlds look like her, but also like the fact that Jebediah Morningside was a bit of a scientist, and she's clearly doesn't seem to have that going on. I wonder how he encountered her to begin with, you know?
it's the mind wanders is the weirdest possibilities.
But also keep in mind that the way the first film was produced, that those scenes were not originally designed to be cut together. They just fit much better in the film wise rather than the story wise. I don't know if really you might be that's grasping at straws trying to
Yeah,
things into it. I kind
yeah,
of like the idea that we started off with this film, where this film pays homage to a lot of great things from the first and second film. One of which is bringing back the actors to play the Lady in Lavender, and not necessarily trying to make it fit within the confines of a story that now has spanned 5 films and how many decades? 70s to the 2016s now.
About 38 years.
yeah.
A long
although
time.
although that's if you go by our time. If you go by theirs, I think that this movie really only takes place in probably the early 2000s because he's been on.
The filmmaker years.
Yeah.
Because I think with each subsequent film, Coscarelli has fine-tuned his mythology.
Yes.
Yeah, and sometimes you kind of write over the elements that you don't like because they just don't work, and you forget about them on purpose. We saw the same thing in Victor Sava's Jeepers Creepers franchise. He just kind of, after the first film, there were elements he didn't like anymore, so he kind of just erased them in the second and third film and just forgot about them. And that's what you do as a filmmaker. You put out a first film, and then we're vague on purpose. We're being vague and mysterious and cool. But by the second and third movie, we're like, shit, we gotta start explaining crap that we didn't want to explain when we did the first film.
Right.
Forget about stuff.
I mean, they do a good job of not necessarily explaining, but of pulling things back. It reminds me of like what David Lynch ended up doing with Twin Peaks, is that there's so much, and there's so much weird stuff, and then when he went in and he made Fire Walk with Me, they added even more weird stuff. And when they did the return, they tried to, not necessarily explain it, but they did bring back, at least revisit each element that was weird to begin with, that had something he didn't like leave things, for the most part, didn't leave things that you were wondering about unaddressed. There's still, he pulled them back, and it made, just like kind of they do here. They ask more questions. It's like he reveals something that, and it makes you ask more questions about it. So
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think this film does a much better job at explaining some of those things and not asking more questions of the audience, unlike the fourth film did. I think every one question that fourth film answered, it gave you 10 more questions about it. This one kind of does a really good job leveling all that out because it knew that this was going to be the final one. They weren't designing this to be any more than this. This was pretty much the end. Even though we got that good little tag with what's her face? I can't even think of it.
Rocky, yeah.
Rocky.
Yeah. Which
we're gonna go out of order here too, because like I feel like we've got an emotional climax we're building to here. But there's a mid-credit sequence where after everything is seemingly said and done, it is the only sequence, actually, now that I think about it, that is not from Reggie's point of view.
Mm.
Every other scene in this movie, every single second, is from Reggie's perspective. This movie, I think of all the Phantasms, I think this is probably the one movie you can make the argument that, yes, this movie takes place entirely in Reggie's head. This is Reggie's dream. But except for this scene, the scene of the desert where Chunk has not blown himself to pieces. He's just minus a hand and like a part of his face. And he crawls out of his face gate. And he's just like, thank God. The thing about a fireball is that it cauterizes as it blows up. So he's not bleeding to death.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, you got third-degree burns all over your body. But no, you're not bleeding to death. Fine. And then a stranger comes up to him, and as the camera pans up, we see it's Rocky. Oh, she comes back and bandages him up, and he hits on her, and he's like, "Can I get a piggyback ride?" And she's like, "Sure." And then he uses that opportunity to grab her boob, and she's like, "Really, dude?" And just drops his little butt.
It's such a lively scene too, especially after what we've seen before this, which we'll get into in a minute, but before the credits begin. This is like you're thinking there, it's like that's it, but then you see this and you're like, there's more life left here in this to go forward, and it's a nice it doesn't take away from the ending that we get before this. It actually it makes you feel a little better, I think, seeing this.
Yeah, because it's kind of not I mean, the ending isn't a downer, but it's not a light ending. I mean, none of the Phantasms have a happy ending, even this one. Although of all of the movies, this one has the most hope.
Yeah.
Of all of them, for sure. Hands down.
Yeah. Now she that Rocky is like, she looks I think her acting is significantly better in this one than the other one.
Yeah, it makes me want to see more of her, and I wish we had.
Yeah.
I don't think these films, this franchise, did any of the actors or people associated with this any favors. As much as it is a popular franchise for people like us hardcore horror fans, it did not extend anyone's career at all.
Yeah, Angus Scrimm did do a lot of horror movies, but most of it was like he's in like one scene and then gets like top billing or something like that.
Oh yeah, he was the king of the he was king of the vampires in Subspecies.
Right?
And then he gets killed.
There's I think he actually, in the opening credits, he's like, if I'm not mistaken, it's been a while since I've seen it. I think he was a top billed in it. It's just funny, but yeah, he kind of got a little bit of a horror movie. Like he got parts from this, but it didn't make him necessarily famous. Most people just know him from this, but he's definitely got other horror movie gigs from it.
Same with Reggie Bannister. He didn't never do anything other than this. I mean, he did lots of horror films, but to actually say that, he's not Robert Englund,
Right? Yeah, yeah.
No.
Robert Englund took his star, and he did other movies other than horror films.
Oh yeah, and he done stuff before. Robert Englund does stuff before Nightmare as well. He was in V.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, Robert Englund was like a Shakespearean trained actor and all that stuff. So, but Reggie, this is like Phantasm was pretty much his first movie, and Phantasm 5 is basically his last movie. So
I mean, I thought and he had. It's weird because he had like a lot of potential too, because he had smaller parts in other films that we're talking about, the Mangler 2 and Bubba Hotep, which was Don Coscarelli pulled him into that. But I don't know what to think, but it's unfortunate that he didn't get other at least supporting parts in bigger films, because he's a really good actor, really, when you see some of the stuff that he does in some of the movies anyway.
Yeah.
Michael Baldwin and the guy, I can't remember the guy who played Jody. I can't even think of his name offhand.
Richard, his name is David or Michael Thornberry. No, Bill Thornberry.
Bill Thornberry, yes.
Yeah. Bill Thornberry is more of a musician. I feel like he kind of teaches that stuff in California somewhere, but yeah, he's really not that much of an actor as a career. So that makes sense. Huh?
Or Don Coscarelli's career. This didn't really do him any favors.
No, but it's a legacy that I think they embrace. I mean, they've all these people we mentioned were at conventions and were happy to engage with fans about Phantasm and never got tired of talking about Phantasm and never resented their being in Phantasm. Even the ladies who got sometimes thankless roles would reminisce about what a joy it was to be part of this franchise. They even made a whole documentary about the ladies of Phantasm and all that. And it was just, there's something special about these movies. And I think, again, it goes to these characters and the fact that you see them over the course of 5 movies. Yeah. And the quality pretty much stays the same through 5 movies. And the story climaxes and has some sort of a conclusion that we didn't quite expect over 5 movies. That's not something you'll get in a lot of other similar franchises. And but yeah, like we were talking about the ending to this one where the timelines coalesce, the dimensions merge. Or do they?
Yeah. But here's something that, right before this happens, I do want to point out some dialogue from a little earlier, because it applies to this. When Reggie's sitting there with Mike in the retirement home, which they're outside of a park, and then this is paraphrased, I didn't write it all down, but Reggie says something like, "Do I want to die here like an old rotting away to nothing, or do I want to get on my feet shoving a 4-barrel shotgun down their motherfucking throats," or something like that,
Yep, you got it.
Yeah. And then he looks over and Mike's not there. Yeah. Which he was there before. Like when he's saying this monologue, Mike was there listening, and then he wasn't there. But here he makes that decision going into the last part of the film, because he is at the retirement home, and then he looks up and sees Mike kind of in between dimensions. He's in the apocalypse dimension, and then he holds the shotgun up and he throws it to him, and he makes the decision at that point to, instead of rotting away, to take the 4-barrel shotgun and go out that way.
Yeah, I reject your reality and replace it with my own.
Yeah.
To borrow a line from another movie.
Yeah, but he does it though. I mean, that's the decision he makes there.
Yeah, he chooses to accept this world. Although I will say that choice would have sang a little bit harder, a little bit better, if they had done something in the retirement timeline to really make Reggie think maybe this is the reality, because he never really doubts for a second that he never doubts that he's jumping between timelines. He never believes anyone when they say that he's just demented. Sorry, that he has dementia. Yeah. But if there was a moment where, at some point, if there was like a reason for him to despair and believe, even for a little bit, that, you know what, maybe this is it. Maybe this is where I will die, alone on a bed with some nurse over me. But, thankfully, even in that dimension, he gets the best possible conclusion, because as Reggie in that time, in at least in the old folks home, Mike gives him the quad, and he's in a bathrobe with the quad shotgun, and he turns around, and now the orderlies have become gravers. They're zombies now, and he shoots the crap out of them, and he's like, yeah. But then he goes through the gate, or not the gate, but like a tear in reality, basically. Like there's the walls between dimensions are breaking down, and that's when he kind of becomes the man he was. But we're not done with that universe, because even when he, hooks up with Reggie, he's out of bullets. Reggie's hooked up with Mike. I'm sorry, he's out of bullets. They got nothing left, and all of a sudden, bam! From out of nowhere comes the Cuda. Oh, I felt so good when the Cuda came down, which is now like the zombie mobile Cuda with machine guns on it. And they say, get in, and basically Jody comes in. Jody's alive for reasons. He's not a sphere anymore. He's alive. And he opens the door, and he's basically like, get in, losers. And they get in and drive off. And Reggie is like so happy that they're there. And he's just sitting in the back seat saying like, man, I know it's crazy, but I'm just so glad to see you guys. I'm so glad to be here. And he just kind of sits back, and it's almost like he drifts off into dream world a little bit. He takes a little nap, and then while he does that, we cut to the old folks' retirement home area. Reality. And Reggie's on his deathbed, and the little thing's going beep, beep, beep. And he is surrounded by his friends who are holding his hand as he dies. And the expressions on their faces is so genuine and so sincere. And we see him slip away. And then that's all done. And now he still exists in the backseat of that Cuda in a post-apocalyptic world. So he's chosen that reality, but yet it's almost like he has to die in the old folks' home area in order to move on.
But it's the thing about him that it's such an awesome scene when he dies, but that is not the same reality as the retirement home that we see earlier in the film, because Jody's there. There's actually dialogue when he's talking to Mike about Jody not being alive anymore. So this is either a third reality or it takes place after they save the world from the apocalypse. In the post-apocalyptic world.
I don't know. Yeah, I did not remember Mike saying Jody being dead in the old.
He mentions it in the first scene that he's in. But so
thought that last sequence with all three of them was more of a wish fulfillment type of scene, a world, not an actual world a possible, not a real possible world. I think the tag on the mid-credit sequence is the only thing that makes you believe that, because it's outside of Reggie's field of vision, that it could be that the future is a real segment. Without that whole little tag on, it's just a figment of Reggie's mind as he's slowly dying.
Yeah, it's the last dream as an old man lays dying, surrounded by his loved ones.
Yeah, so that's how I've always interpreted it. I always, I've only seen the movie twice now. The first time I thought that I liked having seen Rocky, but I hated it because it just didn't really gel with the way I wanted the film to end. It's a fun sequence now, but I also see that there's one thing I do wish that they had done to make the whole old folks home ring a little bit more authentic for me, because so in the third film we see pictures of his family, and then the tall man mentions his family again in this one. It would have just added something much more if in the old folks home there is a sequence, instead of him seeing Mike, that he sees either his older daughter or his wife in those sequences, and maybe they're not dead. And then you could give this hint that the realities are really screwed up because it's
Oh, you know what? Yeah, you're right. You know what? Actually, that would have been. Remember when I said earlier that there should have been something in the old folks' home timeline to make him think that this is real. I think maybe that should have been the thing, that he sees his wife and kid and they're grown up, and that maybe he thinks about the tall man's offer and thinks, oh, this is it.
Yeah.
This is what he meant. This is what he's offering me. You get to die alone. You get to die with your wife and kids by your side, which is really all you could ever hope to get.
Yeah, I always wanted something like that to make his death a little bit more poignant. I like seeing them all together at the end, because that's essentially what they are. But because this movie is so focused on Reggie, I wanted something a little bit more than him still pining after the three of them as a theme throughout the entire movies. I just wanted something.
Well, I think but the thing is that he doesn't want his family, which is an odd thing that he doesn't want his wife and his daughter, but like his ending there with them around his bedside is what he tells the tall man that he wants. And I think that is maybe his version of getting it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
maybe he succeeded in reversing Jody's death, which he died in a car crash. Everybody knows. So.
Well, I mean, he wouldn't have quote died in a car crash to begin with if the tall man hadn't messed with reality in the first place. So actually, it makes sense that Jody would be alive if he died in the first. He didn't die in the first movie. I mean, technically speaking, I think we've talked about this before, but like, even if Jody, we talked about this when we talked about it in Phantasm 4, but like, even if Jody died in a car accident, it doesn't matter. He still would have gotten his body still would have come to Morningside, and his brain still would have been excised and replaced with a sphere. Either way, it doesn't matter whether he's kidnapped by the tall man or whether he's been killed in a car accident. Either way, the tall man got him and turned him into a sphere. But yeah, so I mean, you could also interpret that he's not actually alive in the Cuda. He's just a sphere that's now has the power to, I guess, create a hard light hologram of himself because he's driving the car.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what.
Yeah.
That's why I've always considered that just kind of like, a dead man's wish fulfillment or his own version of a heaven, even though it's a post-apocalyptic world and the tall man has actually won. But yes.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, you could see it as a man transcend his will, his soul, his spirit transcending his body, because like this world in which he is fighting evil with his friends is the end result of his struggle against death. Yep. And in a sense, he's finally won the battle over death, which I think is really beautiful in that he can't beat the tall man, but in choosing that reality, he has defeated death, at least in a very small way. And he defeated it for the love of his friends. He defeated it for the loyalty he feels towards them. And I don't think it's because he doesn't like his family or, and all that. I think it's just because that relationship, because of the past 30 years, is just more in his heart than what he had with his wife and kids because he was there with them for 30 years, whether it happened or not, whether it was all in his head or not. It was more important. I mean, that reminds me of, I don't know if this is real, but I saw this Facebook thing where there was supposedly this girl who was in a coma for like 14 years or something. And when she dreamt she had a whole life. And then with like a husband and kids and everything. And then when she woke up, they didn't exist. And she had to go to therapy because she was mourning the life in the dream that she had.
Well,
because none of it was real.
Well, also,
we don't know if dreams could be real. We don't know for sure. But
Well, keep in mind the timeline really for these movies is like maybe if you don't take in consideration the whole futuristic thing, the timeline could very well just be like a couple weeks between the second film and the fifth film. Um, because they're simultaneous. I mean, they just happen in a truncated amount of time in terms of the characters' lives, really. Uh, so
Well, I think this one takes place during different timelines. I mean, different age, periods of time. So it definitely didn't take place. I mean, it seems like it's like a lot longer after part four than most of, it, especially how Reggie looks.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
mind so much by how he looks because you don't know what's real and what's not. That's the thing.
No.
You don't know what's real, what's not. This could simply be, like you said, he goes through the portal at the end of the fourth film, and everything that happens in a weird dimension that he's found himself in, and it just plays with time. And if he was to step out of that portal, it'd be like, oh, 5 minutes after the time he entered the portal. I don't think that you could take time in this film. This one in particular is just a relative concept because of the way it tells its story. It's a great way to tell a story. The thing I bring the closest with this fractured time that's in this film is Jacob's Ladder. If you've seen that movie, it's so fractured that we're watching the story from the main character's perspective that you don't always know what you trust because he's not reliable at all.
Right. Yeah. Well, this another example is the last season of Lost, where the characters are in a death. They're when it shows them they're after they've died, they're in a post life place, which is similar to their lives, but we don't know that until like later on. But it's a similar like kind of jumping back and forth sort of thing like that happens.
And Lost did that a lot in their over the course of I think there are 5 or 6 seasons, jumping back and forth between time periods.
But because it started off with like it's really clever the way they did it because they started off with it was wherever they're at in present day time, which is on the island, to their past, and then they eventually flipped it so some scenes took place in the future. The first time you saw it, you thought it was a past scene, and then they eventually put in scenes that took place after they had already died, and they were in a purgatory sort of place, instead of a reality.
All this to say, ladies and gentlemen out there, in case you have completely zoned out and like your eyes have gone cross trying to think about this, don't worry, folks. I've seen this movie at least twice now. Not once was I ever confused. Not once was I ever like, what the crap? No, I was never confused watching Phantasm 5. I was a little confused in one particular beat, one particular sequence in Phantasm 4, but we've talked about that already. And if you guys want to hear what that is, ladies and gentlemen, listen to that episode. But not with this one. I never felt confused. So, the movie has a pace that never stops and never gets bogged down.
It's pretty short too. It's like an hour and 23 minutes or something.
It's short, but I do not believe that anyone who's never seen any of the other Phantasm films will get this movie at all.
Oh yeah, no, but for sure. Yeah, I didn't mean that. I meant you totally need to have seen the other ones to get this at all.
Yes, that's the drawback on this, because if the other films don't keep a person interested enough to go to waiting to watch the fifth film, they're never going to get around to it. That's the bad thing about something. That is literally the bad thing about this franchise. If you can't sit and go with it because it is one continuous story, you're not going to finish it. I mean,
granted though, for like almost all of the sequels, this one doesn't really do it that much, but for almost all the other sequels, there is a recap. Whether Reggie does it or whether Mike does it, somebody, or even Lisa does it in Phantasm 2. Somebody will be the disembodied voice that will bring you up to speed as to what the heck is going on as much as she can. Yeah.
I think the fourth one and the fifth one are the only two you can watch. Those two are like, you have to see
you have
the
to.
other ones.
Oh yeah, because by then you
yeah.
are so deep in the lore at this point, you gotta just go
It's
back.
not so much so deep in the lore. The second films, you don't have to have seen the first film to enjoy the second film because there's a huge time gap between the first film and second film. So when
Yeah.
But even the third one though is more streamlined.
the third one's streamlined because it's trying to, Coscarelli is trying to go back and do all the thing he wanted to do in the second one but couldn't. So of course the third. This is why I said before when we talk about the third one. The third one seems like a self-contained film that I can watch without having seen the first two movies. But that fourth film, oh God no, God no, and this fifth film, hell no. You cannot just sit there and watch the film.
I feel like 4 and 5 are really just kind of one thing.
Well, no, because the fifth film is so much more. See, for you like the fourth film, but there are too many flaws for the fourth film for me. This fifth film is a different beast for me. I think it's a much more consistent film than the fourth film ever was.
Oh, I will agree on that. Yes, this is more consistent. Although I do feel like stylistically it's not consistent because the web series stuff feels a little bit more scattershot than the stuff that was clearly shot for the movie.
But I never knew that there was a web series when I seen this. Until just now, I never knew there was a web series when I seen this. And I've seen it twice now. Never knew this, and it would have never even bothered me at all. That I didn't know that there was a web series originally. Not at all.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the same as like watching the back rooms where you have the really polished footage versus the stuff they shot for the web series, and you're looking at them like, oh good God, they didn't mix them up, they reshot that shit because there was such a difference in qualities for it. For this one, I think that the director and Coscarelli decided to go with a different kind of color palette, a different type of a style for it, and it works for this movie. I just think that thank God they didn't do the long recap, but that this one is for the fans. We mentioned this in the very beginning. This one's for the fans. That's what this movie's for. It pays off for the fans. I do not believe anyone who is not a Phantasm fan should ever even bother with this film. No. They will get confused and they're going to not even want to watch the other movies. I want them to watch the other fucking movies first.
I think we all do.
Yes, I want them to watch the other movies.
Yeah.
Because if you stick with it, I think that this was a great payoff for a franchise that took almost 40 years to complete as it is currently. I think it is a testament to Coscarelli's enduring, whatever you want to call it, his wanting to keep this in his family and try and keep it as close knit as possible, like Don Mancini has done with the Child's Play franchise / Chucky franchise. That doesn't happen very often.
No, it does not.
Even Victor Salva lost the rights after the third film for Jeepers Creepers. They made that shitty ass fourth one, Reborn. But if he hadn't become persona non grata, I'm sure he would have tried to keep that franchise going. Like, dude, it's rare. It's rare.
Yeah, it is. It is. Well, there is something we need to get to though, because I feel like Chunk. We talked about Chunk, that little guy. We love him. He's one of the greatest additions to the Phantasm franchise. And he's kind of an action hero in this movie. There's not that many dwarf action heroes we get in pop culture. Excuse me. But Chunk is it. And he gets to blow up the tall man in this movie. And he helps blow the tall man up in one other scene. And we already said what his line was, where he calls the tall man tiny, which is great. But guys, I feel like we could do better.
Okay.
And I think we can do better by having Mr. Arnold Schwarzenegger come in and see what else Chunk would have said when he did his suicide explosion. So here we go. We got 5. Sorry, no, we got 4. I had 5. I erased one of them because it wasn't that great.
I appreciate you doing that, man.
We have 4 Schwarzenegger alternators for Chunk's suicide explosion.
All right.
So here we go. Number 1. It's time for a meeting. My fist, your balls, and these grenades.
Okay. Right.
Number 2. Hey, tiny balls. I know you've been blown up before, but you've never been blown by me.
It's,
Number 3, it only gets worse from here. Number 3.
well, that one was it was a little provocative. I wasn't expecting
I was
that
about to
one.
say, it only gets worse from here. Number 3, you like that one when you hear this. Number 3. Number 3. Hey, Raisin Prick, you know why they call me Chunk? Because when I'm done with you, that's all that's left.
Oh,
And finally, number 4. Hey, yellow-blooded freak, prepare to get ravaged.
You got the name, the title in there.
Yes, which they never say. They never say the word Ravager in this movie.
What do you think it means? Yeah.
Yeah, what is the Ravager? I think we're supposed to believe from Coscarelli that the Ravager is the giant spear.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Ravager of worlds. Like that's what that's all about. Like it ravages the world.
Yes.
I think that's pretty much it. I hadn't given it any thought whatsoever until just now, but I think that's as good a reason as any, to be honest with you.
I mean, at least the other titles make sense. Like for 3, Lord of the Dead, that makes sense. 2, The Ball is Back, because the ball is back. And 4, Oblivion, that's the only one they kind of half-assed, I think. I mean, Oblivion could be anything in that movie.
Lord of the Dead's a little random too, though. It's like
He is the Lord of the Dead, though. That's what he does.
Yeah, I guess. But it's like they're trying to like.
They just had lots of zombies in that one. Okay?
Yeah.
The zombies that just keep coming back and coming back for more.
It's like this is a cool subtitle, Lord of the Dead. Let's do it. You know.
And it's also one of the titles for Satan as well, Lord of the Dead.
Yeah.
Your continuing reference of Satan as the tall man or the tall man.
He's totally a satanic archetype. Come on.
That would be like me saying that the Cenobites and Pinhead are an ideal of Satan. I never thought about that at all.
It is called Hellraiser, though.
Yeah, he's literally from hell.
It's a hell, but not the hell that you're believing religious hell. Not,
I mean, sure, Clive Barker was specifically trying not to go there, but by the time you get to Hellraiser 3, though, he's clearly, yeah.
Hellraiser 3, oh my God, I can't wait to re-talk about those on the podcast, Jesus. All right, guys, I want to thank you both for joining us on the final film in the Phantasm franchise. We have had a great time talking about the entire franchise. And I am glad that you two were here to talk to us about them. But now we're going to go ahead and rate the movie, this one in particular, between 1 and 5, 1 being poor, 5 being amazing. But what we love to do is we like to take a object, quote, or saying from the movie to attribute to our rating. What is your rating, and what object, quote, or saying are you going to attribute to your rating? And we're going to start with you, Dave.
So I'm going to pick the giant Ravager spear from War of the Worlds. I'll give it 3.5 of those. I think it was a nice send off to the series. It was, like I said earlier, it's a love letter to everything that came before it, and it does wrap up everything fairly nicely. I'd still prefer the first 2 over all of them. I think those are, especially the first was a very solid horror film. The second one really upped the ante and made it more commercial viable.
So you would rank them 1, 2,
and then it's really hard for me 1 and 2 though, because it's like one is almost like a indie horror film and it has all the ideas, but the second one takes those ideas and makes it like awesome, So it's hard. 1 and 2, but let's if it was going to rank them, I would say for watchability purposes, 2, 1, 3, 5, and then 4.
I'll second that. I would probably put them in that exact same order too, for the same reasons. So. What about you, Mr. Thomas?
Well, there's so many marvelous and terrible objects that are flying around and crawling around and blowing up and getting shot and rolling around for this movie. And am I going to make your life a living hell by picking yours before I do it? I mean, there's so many things. My first blush was I was gonna pick the souped up zombie mobile Chemicuda because it's so cool. And I feel like the visual of it kind of symbolizes this movie in a weird way, because like the Cuda is like the heart and style of the first movie, and then just put some guns on it and some zombie mobile stuff on
it's
it.
It's like some
bam.
Mad Max looking when that thing rolls up like that.
Yeah. It's got like two freaking machine guns mounted on the top of it. It's great. But I decided not to do that instead.
Kevin appreciates you. Go ahead.
I hope so. Yeah.
You might as well name a couple other ones you weren't going to use too.
No, you guys didn't pick mine. Thank God.
Well, my other alternative would have been the suicide spear, which we didn't even mention. That now there are so many different kinds of spears that this movie introduces. Aside from Dave Watkins mentioned the giant kaiju-sized spear, the Ravager. But there's also like a flying ball that's red and gets stuck to some random guy's head, and spikes just come out of it in all directions.
Oh yeah, that does happen.
Instead of drilling into his skull, the thing just explodes.
Yeah,
which is pretty rad. It's like the tall man doesn't even care about turning the rebels into zombies or gravers or whatever. He's supposed to blow them up. So he's got suicide spears basically. But no, I'm not even gonna pick that. Instead, I'm going to pick the thing that I think defines this movie much more than that. Because like I said before, this is Reggie's movie. So I think I'm going to pick Reggie. Specifically, I'm going to pick Reggie in a bathrobe in the old folks' home with a quad shotgun in his hand as he's about to turn to face the hordes. And I'm going to pick 4 of those Reggies out of 5. Because I feel like that moment kind of defines this movie, where he's between worlds and makes the choice to fight. And I feel like, for those of you who are out there, of course, a lot of that stuff in that old folks home hits really hard when I rewatched it, because as of this recording, Reggie Bannister is in hospice care with dementia. Oddly, weirdly, that's the same thing that's in this movie is the same fate that he's going through in real life. So go out there, and I'm sure there's probably a link to it on phantasm.com. You can donate to his care. And if you love these movies at all and care about them, I recommend, guys, go ahead and either donate to his care and hospice or just send him a letter, because his wife says that even though he's losing it, he still loves getting those letters and getting those messages. And I think that's one of the great things, about cult media in general, is that you can do something back in 1979 when you were just a 30-something or 40-something guy just starting out, and look back on your life and think, what did I do with myself? What did I really accomplish? I did a few stupid movies here and there, and what do I got when this is all done? But Reggie Bannister has this thing that he contributed to that has touched people's lives and hearts in a way he could not have foreseen. And because the cult of this movie and these movie franchises are so enthusiastic, I feel like even when he's forgotten, we will never forget him. So go out there and reach out, because we won't have much time.
Okay. Oh, well, I'm gonna say my ratings and then we'll end it. But that was such a great speech to talk about such a great man. We talked about him and his situation in previous episodes, so we do hope that people will check that out when they listen to this episode. And I'll make sure that I add on the notes where you can do all that if you don't know where you can. So, but getting on to my ratings, I'm going to give it 4 exploding tall mans, since I have not used him at all in my ratings. So I was saving the tall man for mine, but for this one, 4 exploding tall mans.
Yeah.
I still enjoy this film. I just I enjoy this way more than I did the like I said, part 4. And I think this is a great ending to the franchise. I do think that this one is a great ending, and I just hope that more people will watch these films and well, first of all, will listen to us talk about these films, and will go out to watch these films if they haven't already to get to this 5th film.
Yeah.
Even in our most decorated of franchise, long-running franchises, there's always that 1 or 2 entries that are less viable than some of the other ones. But we still stick with them regardless. But I believe that, like Dave said earlier, because these were not nearly as popular or financially viable as Friday 13th and Nightmare on Elm Streets, they're not nearly as well seen as those films are.
Yeah, what's odd is like, growing up when I saw the second one like on television a lot, I always at that point I was thinking it was a lot bigger deal than what most people make it out to be.
I was the same way, which is, like I said, the second movie, if they hadn't done the second movie, I would have never known there was a first movie.
Yeah.
The second movie coming out made me want to go out and find the first movie. Because
Right, yeah. It's kind of like almost like when we were talking about Basket Case. Like you look at Basket Case, the first one compared to the other ones, it's like a indie film compared to like something with a budget. It's kind of like a similar sort of vibe. Not, I mean, they're lot different situations, but a similar sort of situation.
Yep. Yeah, you're right. Basket 2 and 3. If I had never I saw Basket Case 2 first before I ever saw the first one, because they put so much more behind it. So yeah. So with that, I do hope you all have enjoyed our conversation in horror, which we delved into all of the Phantasm films this month. Please make sure to check out all the episodes that delve into each individual film. We do hope that you enjoy listening to us talk about them, because we enjoyed bringing the conversations to you. Please make sure to like, share, follow, subscribe. Do that thing you do with your favorite podcast app, Spotify, or YouTube. And please make sure to check out our companion podcast, Conversations in Hammer Studio Horrors, which is every first and third Friday of the month. If you are a fan of classic Hammer Studio films, you're going to enjoy that conversation and podcast there. From all of us here, Something Wicked Entertainment, we're going to wish you a pleasant journey through the Red Planet or Red Zone, however you want to see it.
Far out.
Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, written, produced, and directed by Kevin L. Powers, executive producer Kelly A. Inoka. All contents and material from this episode of Conversations in Horror is copyright 2025 Broken Lighthouse Pictures.